Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Be a Better You podcast. I am your host and subconscious reprogramming expert, Allison K. Dagny. Now, if you ever feel like that your emotions hijack your day before you even get out of bed, before you even get to finish your coffee, you're not alone. And you're not broken. That's so important for you to know. But if this kind of thing is happening to you, you go to bed, you're trying to get a good night's sleep, you wake up in the morning, and then it's just like repeat, where now all of a sudden you are getting triggered, you're already thinking about what bad things could happen, or maybe you're ruminating on the past or coming up with these fantasy ruminations, whatever's happening. This is emotional chaos. This is stuff that, when we wake up, we just want to be at peace. We just want to focus on things that are important to us. But here's the thing. You're probably doing what most people do. You're probably reacting to your thoughts instead of responding to them. Now, this is my expertise, and this is what I help women do all the time. I learned how to do this myself several years ago before I became a coach, and it has been absolutely transformational. The thing that we want to be aware of to shut down these emotional spirals is to really be aware of our thinking, really be an observer of our thoughts. And this helps you get out of react mode and into respond mode. There's this thing that I call the power of the pause, which is that little tiny blip of time right before you speak, right before you react emotionally, right before you act in any way. And it takes practice to know what that pause is, understand it, and be able to literally sit in it for a moment or two before you react. So today, I'm going to give you 3 quick tips to shut down the emotional chaos before it takes over, right? As soon as you wake up in the morning, or if something were to trigger you. So you may want to get a pen and paper if you're not driving or on a walk, and you can write some of these things down to help you. Now, I want you to know that these kinds of moments happen to me too. Even though I have done a lot of personal development work, even though I have practiced rewiring my brain repetitively, there are just some things that happen that you cannot predict. There are things in your life that will come up, and you have no way of knowing how you're going to respond. The key word being respond, right? Because we don't want to be in that reactive mode, because when we're in reactive mode, that's when things start to take over. That's when the spirals happen. That's when our emotional chaos starts to take a hold of us and run away with us. And so to be emotionally empowered, to be in control of how you feel, is really something that takes some conscious intention and practice. So I don't want you to think going into this that if you do these 3 things that it's going to automatically shut down the emotional chaos, but it is something that you can start to practice and be mindful of in your waking hours. So I'm going to just share a quick story about a recent time where I almost went into an emotional spiral moment, but I was able to catch myself and make sure that it didn't turn into that like emotional chaos. So I have been friends with someone who lived overseas in the UK for many, many years. I met her online, and I was helping her through a lot of her own issues with an abuser who she had escaped from. And we talked frequently, we messaged frequently, and I know that things were getting a little bit heated with her ex and with the court systems and things as of late. And so I had, as usual, messaged her a few times. I hadn't heard back from her. So I tried messaging her on social media and WhatsApp. I tried emailing her. And of course, my mind immediately starts to think the worst case scenarios, like what happened to her? What bad thing happened to her? Did something happen to her? My mind also went to, did I do something wrong? Did I upset her in some sort of way? And when I realized that I was doing this, I caught myself immediately, because, it wasn't helping me to ruminate on the what ifs or all of the catastrophes that my brain wanted to latch onto immediately. And so knowing this was happening, right, being an awareness of it, I was able to use these things I'm going to share with you today to help myself interrupt that so that I didn't let that chaos take over. Now, these are tips that you can use immediately whenever you feel that emotional chaos creeping in. And this looks like things like I just described. You start questioning things, you start replaying memories, you start putting these like worst case scenarios in your brain, and they start to take hold. So that's going to be the number one thing that you want to be aware of, is like when this kind of thing happens, whether it's a reaction from someone that you're talking to in your real life, if you're at the grocery store, if you're driving in your car, whatever happens, right? Like, you will notice that the chaos starts creeping in because you will feel dysregulated. You will feel emotionally unstable. So if you can pay attention to your body and how you're feeling, that's going to be your first clue. That's going to be your first like alarm system that goes off that tells you, hey, this is a time to be aware. This is a time to start actually thinking. Now, do I say you should feel your emotions? 100%. If you're feeling dysregulated, I want you to feel it. If you're feeling sad, I want you to feel it. If you're feeling guilt, regret, whatever, you have to feel those emotions. We can't be stuffing them, pushing them under the rug. We have to actually acknowledge our feelings. The thing is, we don't want to be feeling them for an extended period of time, right? Because that's what keeps us in a nervous system dysregulation state, in fight, flight, freeze, fawn, that sort of thing. So we want to feel them, acknowledge our emotions, but then process them mentally and allow them to pass. All right, so if this episode ends up hitting home for you, I just want to remind everyone I've got a 30-minute free consultation with your name on it, and we can shut down the spiral at the root, and I can help you figure out what it is that's causing this for you and help you determine what the right direction is for your personal healing journey. All right, so let's start with tip number one. Tip number one is to interrupt the pattern. So you want to use a either physical or mental pattern interrupt. And what this might look like would be something physical that you can do. Like one of my clients and I worked together on this, and she had chosen to snap a rubber band on her wrist every time that she noticed. Now, that's the thing, you have to be practicing your awareness, but she would snap a rubber band on her wrist to remind her in a physical way to interrupt the pattern. So when her mind started going somewhere that she knew wasn't benefiting her, then she would do that little reminder. You can do lots of things, okay? This isn't just about like something that's painful for you. It's a reminder. So you could clap your hands together. You could snap. You can stand up or move to a different area of your house. And one really, really easy one is to verbally say stop out loud. You can do it in your mind, but sometimes that connection of your verbal command can be really helpful to remind you to stop, so that you're not just like in your head, but you're verbalizing it out loud. Now, why does this work? Because it brings you out of autopilot and into the present moment. And often when we are in a reactive state, not responding, but reacting to something, we haven't allowed that pause and we are not present. So when you clap your hands, when you snap that rubber band, when you say stop out loud, when you get up and move to a different area of the room, whatever that is, helps you interrupt the pattern. Now, this is just the step number one, okay? So I used to sit and stew on things until my stomach hurt. Now, the second that I feel it starting, right, that buildup, that's when I recognize that I'm starting to go into the spiral. And what I like to do is stand up if I'm sitting, or move, like I said, move to a different room or something like that. And what this does is it kind of disrupts the trance. Now, obviously you couldn't do this if you were driving a car. You'd have to choose something else. Maybe the stop is the best thing for you. But what you're going to need to do is decide what feels comfortable to you and what would actually help you to stop or interrupt that pattern. So if it makes sense for you, it might be a phrase even. It might be something like, nope, I am not letting the spiral take hold, and saying that out loud, right? Like whatever you would want somebody else to do for you or say to you, that could be something that could really help you interrupt that pattern. Now, the second thing that you want to do is name what is happening, not why it's happening. Why is not important in my world. What is happening? Okay, so what I mean by this is you're not just analyzing the feeling. Like I said before, when you feel the emotions, that's important. We're just naming it. We're just saying, oh, hello, anxiety. I recognize that you're here right now. Or, oh, this is overwhelm and I'm feeling it in my body. Ooh, I'm feeling really guilty in this moment. Where is it settling inside my physical form, right? Like anything that you can do to name it without judging it, without analyzing it or, picking it apart. All you're doing is acknowledging it. Okay. So that's the second part. All right. Now, why does this work? Because when you name something, it activates that prefrontal cortex in your brain, which is your logic center. It's the front part of your brain. And this helps bring back control, gets you again, pulls you out of that autopilot. Okay. So I was reading a book the other day, an Audible book, and the man who wrote the book, his name is Matt Abrahams, and he is a communication professor at Stanford. And he was talking about this activity that he was doing. And I'll spare you the details on why he was doing this, but there was a point to it. But I just found this to be a really interesting activity where if, let's say you're out on a walk, you look at any object that you see out like in your neighborhood, and you name it something else that it is not anywhere associated with. So like, let's say if you saw a house, maybe you said carrot, and then you see a fire hydrant and you said tree, and then you see a worm and then you said pizza. Like you have to like consciously force yourself to think of a different word. Well, what this does is it puts your prefrontal cortex back online, okay? You are having to force yourself to think differently. And so this is similar where we're just naming the feeling, right? We're not thinking of it in a different way. I'm just showing you this, giving this example, because if you try it yourself, you really have to like force yourself to think about it. And what that does is that pulls you out of that thought spiral that you're about to jump in, okay? Because you're taking back control. So you're saying, oh, okay, wait, I noticed that this is anxiety. I noticed this is overwhelm. What is it? Where is it in my body? Like we are being very, very conscious in this moment, because a lot of times where I talked about that pause, we are in an unconscious state. We're not thinking logically because emotion pops up and then it usually runs away with whatever it is that we're thinking about. So let's interrupt the pattern, number one. And number two, name the feeling. Figure out what that is and actually just be conscious with it for a moment, okay? The third tip I want to give you is to ground yourself in the senses or even movement. So try to choose something that you can do to ground yourself in that moment when something happens and when you're starting to feel yourself fall into that spiral. So now that you know, like, okay, I have to be aware of what I'm thinking. I need to interrupt the pattern, recognizing that it's happening, interrupt it with a physical movement, like clapping, standing up, telling myself to stop the spiral. Naming it. Okay, I'm feeling anxious. I'm feeling this feeling right now. Or I'm feeling scared, or I'm feeling overwhelmed. Okay. And then grounding yourself in a technique like touching something that's textured. You can do this like name 5 things that you see, or Name something that you can touch or that you can hear, or think about all the sounds around you. Like, oh, I can hear the dog barking, I can hear the lawnmower, I can hear a bird chirping, right? Like, all you're doing here is you're pulling yourself back into the present moment. Because if you're not in the present moment, you're either in the past or you're in the future, or you're in a fantasy state, but you're not here. So the whole purpose of this is to get you back in the present moment so that your emotional chaos doesn't take over and send you back to the past or into the future with all these worries and fears. Okay? Now, I want to share why this is so important. This part, this tip to grounding in your senses, or like movement, as far as like touching something textured or whatever. You get to choose what feels right for you. But the reason why this is so important is because safety in the body is really key to helping you heal. So if you can access safety in the moment, right, and you're not pulled back to the past, or you're not worrying about the future, you're showing your brain and your body that you are safe right now in the moment. Like, even if something feels threatening to you, like let's say that you get a text message from your ex and you immediately start the spiral. What could it be about? This is what's going to happen. He's probably going to drag me to court again. Like, your brain is like just automatically going there. Well, if you stop the spiral, right, you get yourself out of this emotional chaos before it takes over by interrupting the pattern. Wait a minute, I'm noticing this is happening. Stop. I'm not going to let this take me out of control. I'm feeling, right? That's number 2. What is the feeling I'm feeling? I'm feeling anxiety. And then ground yourself into the present moment, right? Like, okay, I'm going to look around and I'm going to find 5 things that I can see, touch, taste, whatever, here. That kind of process helps you get out of your mind and back into your body, because emotional chaos doesn't live in the body, it lives in the brain, it lives in your head. Right now, you will feel the effects of that in your body, but the start of it happens in your mind. There is a connection between the mind and the body, so that cannot be ignored, but it's really, really important to get present in the moment and ground yourself so that that is not something that is going to continue to, dysregulate you. This is so important, because if you're showing your mind that it's safe when I get a text message from my ex, because I am not ruminating, because I'm not in the past, because I'm not worried about the future, because I'm grounding myself, this is something that can help you stop the spiral. Now, I do want to say, and if you've listened to my podcast before, you know this, that there is a way to reprogram your brain, right? This part of this episode, what I'm telling you, these 3 tips are going to help you to interrupt the pattern, shut down the chaos before it takes over. But this isn't a like permanent solution. This is a temporary technique that you can use to help you stop. Okay? This is important to learn how to do this, of course. But if you really want to be unaffected and indifferent when things happen, you have to actually get into your subconscious mind and rewire and reprogram the things that are causing you to even have that in the first place. Because if you think about the example that I gave, like of feeling that anxiety when you get a text message from your ex, right? Not everyone who gets text messages from their exes start down this emotional spiral. They don't feel anxiety. And it doesn't mean it's because their ex isn't a horrible person or an abuser, right? Some people have their brain's programming is not the same as somebody else's who goes immediately into fear, fight, flight, freeze, fawn, like those nervous system responses. So if you want to be one of those people who are unaffected by it and are indifferent to it, then these 3 tips are going to help you but it's not going to be a permanent solution. The permanent solution that I have found that works for me and works for all of my clients is reprogramming the brain. It is saying, okay, what am I feeling when I experience this event or when this trigger happens? And what am I believing that is in my brain right in this very moment? And then we reprogram those things and we rewire them with the 4-step process that I teach my clients, the proprietary process that is in my 12-week program. So I'm giving you these 3 tips because I want you to be able to at least have this like immediate action to be able to stop that chaos before it takes over. But like I said, there's a deeper layer to this. This isn't something that's going to happen overnight, and it's certainly not going to happen in a podcast episode. But this is important information for how to do this. So let me recap these 3 tips first and foremost. Number 1, interrupt the pattern, however that feels good to you. Reminding yourself, it's like a habit that you're building, right? So if every time that you clap your hands, that you tell yourself to stop, I'm not going to let this spiral, whatever that is, create that habit for yourself so that you interrupt that pattern before it's able to take hold. Remember, this is bringing you out of autopilot and pulling you into the present moment. The second tip is to name what's happening, not why, right? We're not like, why do I feel this way? Or why is this happening to me? No. This is not the time to ask why, right? That's actually a trap door to the spiral. We don't want you in that, like sliding into this like trap door into the spiral. We are not trying to figure out why. We are naming the feeling. We are acknowledging its presence. We are saying hello to it even, okay? This is getting you back into the logic center because of your prefrontal cortex and brings you back in control. And the third tip is to choose a grounding technique. And again, this is to get you into the present moment, gets you out of your mind, and most important, it helps you realize that you can be safe right now. Now, I'm not talking about if like there's an actual threat against your life, like somebody is physically going to attack you. That's not what I'm talking about. We're talking about the trauma, the leftover stuff, the triggers, all the things, right, that we're trying to heal from the wounds from being abused. Okay, so those are the 3 things. Now, again, these tips are going to help you in the moment. But if you're ready to stop having so many moments like these, then that's where I come in with my 4-step process that I've been taught from the ThoughtWork Institute, and I can take you deeper and I can help you rewire all of those things that are sending you into those spirals and that emotional chaos. All right? So if you're interested, you can book a free 30-minute consultation with me in the link in the bio, and we can find out what's really fueling this chaos. And then I can show you how I can help you in all the different ways that I have that might align with what your healing needs truly are. All right, thank you so much for being here. I truly appreciate you listening, and I hope these tips have been helpful. If you have any questions at all, or if you have ideas for the podcast, feel free to message me on Instagram or Facebook at Allison K. Dagny, and I will talk to you all next week.